We've got a great show for you today. We're going to look at those preseason games from last night, talk about Mac Jones and company. What did we see? What did we like? And then today's show is all about those top 10 quarterbacks. Which guys are going to end up on our teams? Which guys are a little too expensive for fantasy players? And who's going to bust? Enjoy the show.
Hungering for something new this summer? HelloFresh has got your back with pre-measured ingredients and easy-to-follow directions. Your new favorite meal can be prepared in under 30 minutes. Get up to 14 free meals, including free shipping, when you use code Footballers14 at HelloFresh.com/Footballers14.
Hey, this is Austin Eckler, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, welcome in.
Oh, it's still football time. Yeah.
Oh, take advantage, Mike. Friday, August 13th.
Ooh.
Spooky show today. Probably the best Friday the 13th show we'll ever do. Had some preseason football. Excited to talk about that, actually.
Yeah.
Takeaways, like, I know that we try to be a filter of sorts.
Of course.
For the fantasy football player, not to get too high, too low, exaggerate what happens at training camp and preseason. But, look, that takes hard work not to do. So I'm curious your guys' takeaways. I had a few. You can watch the show. YouTube.com/TheFantasyFootballers. If you want to check that out, subscribe, click the bell. You'll know when we're going live. We're going to be doing a few live streams in the next few weeks. We'll be giving away some special things. So you'll want to be following us there or on Twitter at the FF Ballers for more information. It is Friday.
Foot Clan Friday.
Every Friday during the season, we have a giveaway for a supporter of the show over at jointhefoot.com. Today's giveaway item from Pristine Auction is a Keenan Allen signed jersey.
Oh, baby.
Congratulations to Fat Tire Drinker.
Okay, that's a lot of you out there. That's congratulations.
But only one of you is named that on Patreon.
Okay.
Not a sponsor. Unless Mr. and Mrs. Fat Tire's out there listening to the show.
I don't think that's their last name. Just a guess.
No, it's their first name.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right.
Fat Tire
Both of their
Drinker.
Pristine Auction. Use the code BALLERS. Get a $10 credit. Congrats again to Fat Tire Drinker for your Keenan Allen signed jersey. Let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league. Presented by Sleeper.
I mean, it's always headline news that you could head over to ultimatedraftkit.com and check out the UDK. Get ready for your draft.
Now's the time.
I made a number of minor
Little tweaks?
tweaksies. Not even tweaks, Mike, just tweaksies.
Yeah. Okay.
To my projections.
Is a tweaksy like
It's a lower
than
tier.
a tweak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what he does is he changes stats on guys, but makes sure that nothing changes in the rankings.
Where is a tinker?
Right. Just like 3 more targets to somebody.
And where does a tinker fall into the lineup of tweak and tweaksy?
Oh, like a tinker or a tweak?
Yeah, or a tweaksy. Which one is
Tinkering means there's a plurality that's included there. To tinker with your rankings, you have to have changed 3 or more players.
Mm-hmm. This piece is fitting together.
And
absolutely.
Is it like mindlessly because you're just tinkering? You don't actually realize what you're doing?
I think you can tinker with a little bit of your mind.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Washington, New England last night. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Got to see Jalen Hurts for a couple of drives. Got to see a lot of Mac Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Got to see Ramondre go for 91 and a 91-yard touchdown. So one of my observations, I guess I'm just worried about that offense in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I think Jalen Hurts looked fine. I mean, he looked –
he
got a couple drives, looked good. Missed Quez on a bomb down the sideline, would have been a 98-yard touchdown, just barely missed him.
That's a really difficult throw.
For him, yeah. Yeah, obviously. No, I'm just kidding.
for any
Yeah, it
quarterback.
was close. They
Yeah.
almost connected on that. I wasn't saying that as a necessarily
Okay,
a negative,
all right.
just like 1 foot away from a 98-yard touchdown. But I'm worried about the Dallas Goedert ADP.
Yeah.
He had he had a very nice reception in this game early on, and you watch him and you go, man, that is a really talented tight end, and he can do a lot with it. And I'm completely with you, Andy, that there's the hype is because of his talent, but with Zach Ertz being as involved as he is, this is a split tight end situation that is not going to end well for fantasy.
And why invest that high of a draft pick on a split tight end situation? It was the Tyler Higbee of last year for me, where you will end up frustrated more. Like, Goddard's going to have some great games. He's a great player. But Ertz exists to make you feel pain, unless they're just showcasing him to trade him. If they, obviously, like, the whole situation's different without Zach Ertz, but Ertz represents a problem to me.
I think part of the hype is still because I was over the offseason, man, I was very hyped for what Dallas Goedert could be. And part of that is the residual of the smoke of the offseason. I truly believe Philadelphia was trying to trade Zach Ertz. They were trying to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to take him. And now maybe that he's disguised himself with the blonde hair, he can fool another team.
Do they think he's gone?
Who's that guy?
You can fool another team into trading for him. Maybe they are trying to showcase him to say, well, Zach Ertz still has something. Please trade for him. But if he is still there on the team, I'm unfortunately going to have to move Goddard down in the rankings.
Will you also move Ertz up, or is that something that's contractually impossible for you?
I hope that you two do the right thing and rank him accordingly, because I will rank Zach Ertz strictly based on my
we
heart.
have to counterbalance Mike.
Yes.
Okay, for our consensus.
Yeah.
There's also preseason hype around Tyree Jackson, 6'8", tight end, got some playing time last night. You talk to people around Philly, they bring his name up too. Too many tight end cooks in that kitchen, and too many, just a lack of options on the outside right now.
My takeaway for Philadelphia, I mean, among the tight end situation is, if Devontae Smith is that dude, he is going to be flooded with targets.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
Over and over and over. So,
yeah, when I watched, I said this on our Slack channel, I thought Jalen Hurts played well, but I'm really worried. Because it's very similar. Like Dallas Goedert looked good, but for fantasy, I don't think it's going to work out. And for Jalen Hurts, I believe he's a good quarterback. But right now, without Devontae Smith, it is a putrid receiving core. Because look,
we saw that movie with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, you were right. We did. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are a very good 1-2 punch for your tight ends.
1-3.
But there's still two tight
1-3
ends.
punch.
These are not like game-changing offensive weapons, and the rest of the wide receiver core is yikes.
Well, and where's Dallas Goedert going to really help your fantasy team?
Yeah.
The red zone they can't reach is how it feels right now. The no need to go Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins discussions here. I don't know if you guys had takeaways on the Pittsburgh side. I really didn't.
I believe the snap count for Najee was 30 of 33
with the first team
snaps with the first
Yeah,
team.
I mean he's established.
He is. We knew it from the Hall of Fame game, but this is it's locked in. Najee Harris is going to be on the field for the vast majority of snaps.
I want to talk about New England.
Okay.
Me too.
Why don't I give you the floor, Jason? What were your takeaways from watching the start with Cam, watching prolonged opportunities for Mac Jones? I'm really curious.
My biggest takeaway, and the one that I wanted to talk about, because it was literally the number one thing I went into yesterday looking for from both of these games, is I wanted to see, how does Cam Newton look? Does Cam Newton look – because there's been a lot of hype and a lot of him talking about how he finally feels better than he has. And he's been injured, and now he doesn't feel that way. He's back to his old self. And I watched, and it was identical to what I saw last year from Cam. Like he didn't, he'd roll out of the pocket and throw on the move and be not the old Cam doing that. And so to me, there was a piece of me, a hope, a glimmer that was like, Cam's going to play this whole season. He's going to be back to kind of his old form, and they're going to win games with Cam because I think this defense is great. and Cam's going to do enough to let Mac sit for the season, and I don't believe that. Watching him play, I was like, this is the Cam we've seen the last couple of years, which is he's a weapon in his own right, but he's just not a great quarterback.
I'll be shocked if Mac isn't the quarterback early. I don't understand why this team wouldn't do that. I thought he looked good. Defense, special teams, that's what this team's going to win with. I think you lose something with Mac on the field around the goal line, obviously, Cam Newton. But Mac Jones, I think, should be the quarterback of this team.
Just bring Cam in on the goal line, man.
Why not?
That goes to my takeaway is I know people are – Stevenson is the talk of that game because the dude busted off a highlight run. And he's an interesting running back because you weren't really sure what player was going to show up of the out-of-shape guy and you had the quote from the New England staff of what does Ramondre need to improve? Everything. And it was like, oh, that's not high praise. But to the other side of that, Damien Harris, I think he's locking himself in as one of my favorite value running back picks.
I had a totally different takeaway from the running back room.
I'm excited for him.
Because
especially if it's Mac Jones.
Oh, okay. I'm curious, Jay. My takeaway was like, oh, that's why I was weak-kneed about Damien Harris early in the year because Sony got snaps. White's going to be third.
Sony got snaps once the first team was gone.
Right, but you had him. I mean, he's still there. That was something we thought might not be the case. And then Ramondre looks good. And then you have third down James White. And then all of a sudden I'm reminded about a four-headed running back room on a team I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was complete confirmation bias. I haven't been very high on Damien Harris. When I watched, I thought he looks good.
Yes. And
this is not going to be good for fantasy. Once again, like this offense is not going to be great. I don't think either quarterback's going to be running a prolific offense here. It looks like it's going to be a slow, meandering offense, and he's not going to be involved in the passing game. The way they utilize him just looked like how they have always, and that's not involved in the passing game. And then you have the goal line problems. So even when he got close to the goal line, it was on that penalty, and it was like, oh, you come back and. So yeah, I'm meh on. I love the talent. I just think that plugging into this offense with the other running backs there and the quarterback situation is I'm bypassing Harris.
A running back that can see 15 opportunities that you're drafting in the 7th or 8th round. That's fabulous to me.
All right, well, we'll see how that plays out. I tweaked him a little bit, tinkered a little bit.
Okay, and then the thing that I was watching for, and again, this is you're trying not to overreact. It's very, very small sample. It's the first preseason game for this team. Antonio Gibson, no third down snaps. It was a combination of J.D. McKissick and Peyton Barber.
And McKissick left the field with the first team just like Gibson did in terms of like snaps.
He came back out.
He was. I noticed McKissick playing later.
McKissick played a little bit later. Having said that, 11 Antonio Gibson snaps, 8 opportunities. So he was the.
You said no third down snaps?
Right. He was the focal point of the offense when he was out there. I mean, that's very high volume, and that included 2 targets as well.
And Washington's defense is pretty good.
Oh my gosh,
that defensive line is one I would not want to play
Holy
on the other side against.
That guy is a monster.
Logan Thomas?
Yeah, he had a nice reception.
Obviously, Curtis Samuel not out there. Terry
Right.
McLaurin was out there. Let's move on.
Okay.
Jeremy Fowler from ESPN reporting Darren Waller's ankle injury is, quote, not concerning, which is what we've heard. Are you not concerned anymore?
It's nice to hear this because we had kind of a different source saying that they thought it was just an ankle injury that they're being cautious with, and then it comes out afterwards that that's exactly what is going on. So I am less concerned now. It's not going to be a long-term injury. It's not something that's I'm fine taking Darren Waller in the third.
Mike Williams, hip flexor.
Here we go.
Not going to play in the preseason. So Mike Williams is very, very proficient and efficient in terms of getting injured.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'll still take him with like my last. Now that he'll drop with this, my last pick. He's the potential wide receiver 2 for Justin Herbert, and he's going to be probably available on your waivers after draft.
Traquan Smith missed his eighth straight practice on Thursday. Michael Thomas had a productive meeting with Sean Payton to move past their frustration.
That's good. I mean, there was, of course, trade rumors.
It helps. It helps you know where to appropriately put the returning from injury Michael Thomas. All right, I think that's it. Brooks, you got anything else for us?
Nothing else.
All right, that was today's news and notes brought to you by Sleeper, the largest dynasty platform on the planet. And, you can tweak. You can do some tweaks.
You
can do some tinkering with those dynasty settings.
Very customizable.
So check that out. Let's get into the quarterback rankings.
Quarterbacks.
I'm excited to talk about the quarterback position in general. I mean, every year we have similar discussions with regards to how do you value them, where do you take them in fantasy drafts. Everybody out there, if you're a brand new player, default mindsets in fantasy football, they revolve around who's the MVP of the National Football League, who are the players that get the most media coverage, and that's always the quarterback position. But in fantasy, you have to evaluate your roster by a lot of other factors. And in truth, quarterbacks, you start one of them unless you're in a super flex league or a 2-quarterback league. And so there are a lot of pretty good quarterbacks in football.
Yeah.
So you have to pick your spot when it comes to grabbing one of these guys. And now we're going to talk through the top 10. And maybe one of those questions I'll have for you guys is which of the top 10 represents the very best value if you're going to go in on one of them. Last year, scoring was way, way up. There were 74 more passing touchdowns last year, despite only 154 more attempts. It was a weird year. The touchdown rate skyrocketed to 4.8%. You can I believe there were 38 quarterbacks with a top 12 week. So, Mike, you've talked about it. Defenses didn't get a big opportunity to prepare last year. We might have felt that on the field. I'm curious, do you guys think that those numbers change this year, or is this just more indicative of the future and what they do for offenses?
Oh, it definitely is going to change. I mean, the offense is becoming more and more prolific, and the rules are favoring the offense, and over time, the needle is pointing up for sure. However, the outlandish amount of offensive production last year is just a clear outlier. But that's really, it's for the most part irrelevant when you're talking about a ranking of the quarterbacks, because I think it'll be a kind of a universal thing.
Yes.
It's not like it was all because of Josh Allen and Josh Allen alone and he's coming back. So really when we're cycling through these quarterbacks, looking at, why we like one versus another and where they are slotting in drafts, whether or not, even if they're our favorite quarterback or our second favorite quarterback, maybe there's someone that we just flat wouldn't draft because of the value. That's the interesting conversation as we dive in.
And remember, for the vast majority of the season, there was nobody in the stadium. There were no fans. So I think the experiment of does home field advantage actually matter? I think we have a resounding answer here that when the road team is on the field and can call plays and talk to each other without fan noise, it's a lot easier to score.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a huge kind of intangible that was removed. Kyler Murray is number 1 on our rankings. He's 2.
What?
Yes.
But Pat Mahomes.
That's your whole argument?
Yeah. Well,
His name?
Yeah. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. Would you agree?
I mean, I have him ranked 1, so yeah.
It's a pretty good argument.
I'm saying, yeah, thank you, Brooks.
Well, sure. I have Kyler at 2. You guys have Kyler at 1. He's being drafted as the QB3, so I think the VOPO that you should have said was something to do with, like, he's just there because you're a Cardinal fan.
That's fair. We are Cardinals fans, and so this might be viewed as a homer pick. Out of 100,
more of a Marge pick.
Expert consensus rankers. I think there's only 3 people with Kyler as the number 1, but it is really that's really surprising to me. This is not a homer pick. I'm not someone that loves every Arizona Cardinal by any means. But my case for Kyler Murray is we've already seen him really be like the quarterback 1. Last year, as a reminder, through the first 11 weeks, he was far and away the quarterback one. Like Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson were fantastic. They had 260 fantasy points, and Kyler was up at 291 fantasy points. Then he got injured his shoulder, and from weeks 12 through 17, he was the quarterback 17, struggling through that injury. Didn't run as much, didn't throw as well. It was really a problem. You saw it on the field. He was so good in those first 11 weeks that week 16, like everybody's fantasy championships, Kyler actually was the quarterback one. He finished, if you take out week 17 that nobody plays, as the quarterback one. That's how good he was before the injury, because he has the 700-800 rushing yards, the potential for double-digit rushing touchdowns, and then he can also throw for 4,500 yards and 30-plus touchdowns. And so that's why I think the potential for him to take that leap forward in the passing touchdown category in his year 3, adding A.J. Green, adding Rondale Moore, with the legs, I think he is the most valuable asset for the quarterback position in fantasy this year.
If you look on the other side of the coin, though, and I would, for the record, I'd rather take Kyler Murray in the 4th round than Patrick Mahomes at the end of the 2nd. So I'll do that every single time. Like, I don't look at the gap between them, as insurmountable by ADP standards. But it's very difficult to have consistency at the position. We saw Lamar Jackson go from all of the arguments last year would have been, okay, Hollywood's going to have, he's got every reason to have a better year, and Lamar is going to, he's always going to give you this rushing baseline, and it was a rougher ride. Does that exist for Kyler in your mind, where I think the reason Mahomes is there is because you have a longer sample of elite quarterback consistency. That's it. And a little bit more of a guarantee at the touchdown in terms of not rushing, but passing. Like, I would bet my house on Patrick Mahomes' touchdown totals being above a certain level before any other quarterback in football.
Yes, completely agree with you. The difference, though, between Lamar Jackson and Kyler is the passing work, right? Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson was he was inconsistent, even though he has that rushing baseline.
His breakout year was 3,100 passing yards.
Right. Last year he had 2,700 passing yards. That is not like with the Arizona Cardinal Cliff Kingsbury offense and Kyler's passing ability. He's going to, 4,000 yards is pretty much guaranteed for Kyler.
11 rushing touchdowns is probably not guaranteed for Kyler.
Not guaranteed, but obviously indicative of what he can do around the goal line.
Yeah, and the floor is safe. You saw
very safe.
Like he takes care of it inside of the as far as like running the ball inside the 5. He had 8 carries. Like he frequently calls his own number, and so I have Kyler as my number 1 guy as well. And I don't like the early quarterback in terms of spending a high pick on them, but Kyler, who drops into the 5th round sometimes, he's at least interesting. Yeah, we're talking about these top guys.
Right now he's 406, and there's wide receivers in the 4th round that I would 100% of the time take over Kyler. I've seen him get into the 5th round where I will draft him in the 5th round. There's kind of a break in wide receivers there. So if he drops, I'm willing to draft him. But even though he's my number 1, I probably am not ending up with him in the 4th round.
The improved offensive line. Like the acquisition of Rodney Hudson, superstar center that they took that they traded for from the Raiders. That is a huge deal when you have someone with that experience and that it can give you that level of protection. Massive upgrade.
Yeah, all right. Before we get all the way down to Patrick Mahomes, I want to thank today's sponsors, Helix Sleep. Look, I know some of you are sleeping on old, saggy, nasty mattresses at night, and you deserve better. You deserve to give yourself an upgrade. I sleep on a Helix mattress. We've replaced our guest room mattress with a Helix mattress because we loved it so much. I need to replace the kids' mattresses because they love sleeping in our bed. It's like, your bed's so comfortable, and I just need to value them.
Get
more.
out.
But listen, everybody likes a different type of mattress, and Helix Sleep matches it to your custom desires. There's a quiz. It's 2 minutes. They match it to your body type. Look, I'm Team Hefty Boys. They have a Hefty Boy mattress, a plus size just for us heavier guys, and it makes a difference. Just go to helixsleep.com/footballers. You take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they will match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. And right now, Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for the Foot Clan at helixsleep.com/footballers. That's helixsleep.com/footballers for up to $200 off and 2 free pillows.
We also want to thank Upstart for supporting the show today. Really believe in this product. If you're carrying a credit card balance month after month, trying, on a number of cards, it can feel like a never-ending cycle of debt based on the interest rates you're paying. And so what Upstart does is they try to help you make that final payment so that you can get ahead. They are the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan all online. So you can pay off all the cards with a personal debt. You can consolidate high-interest debt. You can get strategic and smart about getting your debt paid off, which gives you more flexibility for life. They know that you are more than just your credit score, so they are expanding access to affordable credit, and you can find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/footballers. That's upstart.com/footballers. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know that we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on credit, but also income and other information provided in the loan application. You can go and learn more at upstart.com/footballers. Well, we have plummeted way down the rankings to number 2.
Oh,
Patrick Mahomes is here. By the way, Mahomes, Allen, and they're both going ahead of Kyler. Our consensus number 1, and then Lamar is basically going at the same spot. It's like depending on the draft you're in, somebody's taking Lamar there, somebody's taking Kyler there, on average. So Patrick Mahomes, he's been a quarterback 1 in 75% of his starts going back to 2018. You want a reason to take Patrick Mahomes, or if in a vacuum, no draft consideration, you want a reason to start Patrick Mahomes over Kyler. 3 years, 75% of his starts, he finishes as a quarterback 1.
Yeah, he's the safer option. I mean, he just is. He's got a better coordinator, better weapons.
Fewer mistakes, less interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little to say poorly about Patrick Mahomes. We all know he's unfathomably great at football.
Andy Reid, greater sign Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, man, that's not even a fair fight at all. Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid is an offensive mastermind, and Cliff Kingsbury pretends to be one. But the issue with Patrick Mahomes is when you are giving up a second-round pick to draft him, basically he has to have that 50-touchdown season to really pay off in what you are losing at that place with a really high-end running back or wide receiver.
Just too expensive when you have other great options, I think. Nothing more to say.
Yeah, I'd say the last thing I would say about Mahomes is what's nice is, in fantasy football, the trend, if you go back 10 years, the number 1 QB in ADP was always last year's number 1 quarterback. That's just how it worked. Someone hit, someone flashed, and then they're automatically the number 1 guy.
Yeah, that's ADP. Happened a lot. Lamar
and the Michael Vick year, and that is happening. But those quarterbacks were not actually safe to be a top 3 guy. Patrick Mahomes is very safe to be a top 3 quarterback.
Number 3 on our list is Josh Allen.
Oh, excellent.
Buffalo Bills quarterback. Jason and myself have him at 3, Mike at 4.
Yeah, take that.
His draft position is the end of the 3rd round as the quarterback 2. So when you talk about that trend, Mike, he didn't slide all the way up to the number 1 position. Despite finishing at number 1 overall, he slid up to the number 2 by ADP behind Mahomes. Ended up with 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, just 10 interceptions, right? It's one thing to put up 37 touchdowns, outlier type of season. It's another to just reduce that interception total to an elite level. That's what was most impressive. That's the biggest sign to me that there was a true level up and not an outlier. But another 8 rushing touchdowns. He doesn't do it like Lamar and Kyler, but he still ends up in the end zone and is valuable with that Cam Newton-esque type of prowess.
Yeah, you're not getting 800 to 1,000 rushing yards, but the touchdowns on the ground will come because he is unbelievably valuable there. You get an extra blocker at the goal line when it's your quarterback running the ball, and because of his size and strength, they're never going to go away from that. Maybe when he's like 36, they'll stop, but Cam's still doing it. So his rushing touchdowns will be there. His passing yardage will be there. His connection with Stephon Diggs is great. The offense is, they didn't have a change. There was a lot of fear that maybe their offensive coordinator would be promoted and out of there, but this is just a great offense, and it's an offense that doesn't need to run the ball, probably won't run the ball that well, and I expect great things again. The one place that I don't expect to be as good is the touchdown passing rate. 6.5% of Josh Allen's throws were touchdowns. That's pretty darn high. NFL average is more around 4.5. So if he has a good season and he's at 5, but takes a slight regression from his MVP efficiency of this last year and just comes back towards a good quarterback, then I think I would be surprised to have him stay put at that touchdown rate personally.
Which means he's probably not worth the investment that high in your draft, and that's really the headline for fantasy players. He did have 7 top 3 finishes over the course of the year, so he had monster games that won you weeks. If you listened to the show last year, I infamously made a championship week decision to start Tom Brady against Detroit instead of Josh Allen against New England in New England.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady went out and scored 40 fantasy points in the
you were right.
in the first half and didn't play in the second half. And then Josh Allen went out and put up 45 against the Patriots in New England.
What a big dummy
you are wrong.
So I think part of that was that's impressive, right? To go on the road against a team that has historically kept your fantasy numbers extremely suppressed and then go out and just light them up through and through.
Yeah, and I've seen a bunch of I'm not drafting Josh Allen in the 3rd round. It's simply not happening. I think we've laid out a good pro and the pros and the cons for Josh Allen. I have seen a lot of people saying I can keep Josh Allen in the 7th or the 8th round because that's what his ADP was last year, and he was one of our top targets. And so just to answer to those people, if you can keep Josh Allen in the 7th or the 8th round, yes.
Congrats.
Yeah, I would 100% do that.
Absolutely. And it's a good point not to toot our own horns, but hones?
What does that sound like?
But the point that you just glossed over.
You don't tote your own home.
we were high on Josh Allen last year as a breakout potential. He's in the Ultimate Draft Kit as one of our breakouts, and we always want to try to find that break. Like when Lamar Jackson won everybody his league, he was a late-round pick that year. When Mahomes broke out and won everybody their league, he was a late-round pick. Josh Allen last year was a late-round pick. So Kyler's going to be great. Josh Allen's going to be great. But we want to find the guy going in round 8+ that has the potential to really break out.
Yeah, and quarterback 1 hasn't repeated since 2012. That's a long time. Lamar comes in at 4 on our consensus rankings. Jason has him at 4. Mike at 3. I'm at 6 with Lamar. Last year he had 26 passing touchdowns, 2,700 yards passing, 7 rushing touchdowns, 1,000 yards on the ground. He already owns 2 of the top 3 quarterback rushing yards seasons of all time. That's only because he hasn't played another season.
Correct.
But it was a year in which the first 10 weeks, if you had made taken the plunge, right? Like people did it. They did it with Michael Vick.
Mm-hmm.
They took the plunge. Oh boy. He's just too valuable if he gives you those special weeks. And it was a bumpy ride. It was a ride that didn't help your team for at least the first half of the year. In the second half, okay, you got it going. Quarterback 2 in fantasy points per game behind Josh Allen. 4th round where Kyler's going. And now you got injuries. Rashad Bateman's not coming back for a while. Most people are saying that's going to be October. Do you have worries?
I don't. Like Rashad Bateman is an addition to this. He is not. At this point, he is not a subtraction to what.
So is he fairly priced? Is Lamar fairly priced at the 408 right now?
I think so. I would prefer to. I would play the ADP gamble game and go into the fifth and see if Kyler or Lamar can drop to the fifth, and if they don't, that's all right. I'll just take a quarterback a little bit later. But Bateman I think he's an upgrade to this team for sure. He's an incredible rookie prospect for the Ravens, but he wasn't there last year. He wasn't there 2 years ago when Lamar Jackson was great. And Sammy Watkins, for all the jokes and everything of Sammy Watkins never fully living up to his potential, he's still a good wide receiver. Like, he can still help an NFL team. He's cold-blooded, baby.
Yeah, I mean, he's far better than a Willie Snead type of ancillary player. I do think Lamar Jackson is properly priced, but again, I won't draft him in the fourth. And
what if he slips to the fifth and you didn't get Kyler? Is he off your board? Because I was going to ask you that if both of those guys.
That's a great question.
Yeah, to be honest, I probably would not take Lamar Jackson in the fifth round.
Let me read you his passing yard totals in the 5 weeks that he set the league on fire last year. 107, 163, 243, 183, 113.
That's hysterical.
So I think that is a little bit scary, right? Like, there were a lot of rushing touchdowns, 4 in that 5-game span.
A lot of passing touchdowns.
And a lot of passing touchdowns on low yardage, but I don't know if that's – I don't know. I don't know if that was like a return to form as much as a nice 5-game run that –
efficiency-wise, that's clearly an outlier. That's even an outlier per passing yard for his outlier season the year prior. So, through the first 12 weeks, there were only 4 games where Lamar Jackson was a top 15 quarterback. So we know that because of the small passing pie, there is disappointment when he doesn't get all the touchdowns.
All right, let's move on to
look. I'm not saying. I'm just saying he was on the Madden cover last year. Not saying.
So he's not this year.
See, I thought you were going to go with he won you a title, and so you're undyingly loyal to him.
Because you didn't draft him. You traded for him after he was bad.
Which is a strategy you can take with these players.
Yes.
If somebody overinvests on a Josh Allen and then you get a couple rough weeks, that's when you pounce. Well, here's our first kind of surprise, bigger surprise, compared to consensus. Number 5 on our consensus quarterback rankings, number 9 in the community, is Tom Brady. The plant man himself. I have him at 4, guys.
Yeah, this is you guys.
Jason has him at 5. One of us has ended up with him in every mock draft this offseason because he's an 8th-round pick. And, Mike, you've got him at 8, which is still...
I have no problem with Tom Brady. I'm just saying I don't have him.
Yeah, you have him a spot ahead of ADP, too.
Pushing him up to 5.
Last year, 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns through the air. Is that 6 rushing yards? Is that what he had last year? Three rushing touchdowns on 6 rushing yards. Imagine if he had 1,000 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's what's that Tom Brady sneak.
They can't be stopped.
That is accurate. 6
that is. So he's okay. That's great.
I mean,
it's unstoppable.
It really is an unfathomable weapon. I don't understand it, and I would not have believed that it was just a Tom Brady thing if he didn't change teams, because you think it's like, oh, he's working with his offensive line and Bill Belichick. They see something, they've game planned something, but he changes teams. It's like you can't stop him from getting a couple yards on that quarterback sneak.
I think the headline here for us, and we've talked about it this offseason, but if you're just coming to the show for the first time, we need to make the case for Tom Brady because this is the first quarterback that we're all willing to draft in fantasy leagues because of the draft cost. He was acclimating to the Bruce Arians system last year. He is the GOAT, so it happened quicker than it did for Carson Palmer or Jameis Winston or any of the other Andrew Luck. He only had 12 interceptions in the system, and from week 7 on, he was the quarterback 6. So if you think it's silly to have him up here, this is what he was from week 7 on. That's a pretty large sample size, won the Super Bowl, and I don't care how old he is anymore.
No.
I'm just going to live there in the Tom Brady experience until he tells me I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, when someone makes a deal with the devil, you don't worry about their age any longer.
Okay, it's not my deal.
Right. I mean, my soul's intact. I don't know about Brady, but at 44, he's something's going on.
There's a bunch of Horcruxes all over the place.
For sure, we got to find them and destroy them. But in the meantime, draft him, because look, when I look at the splits last year,
Tom Riddle.
Tom Riddle, indeed.
Yeah.
Yikes. So here's the thing. When I look at the splits of last year, you're darn right, Harry Potter nerd for life.
How was your Dungeons and Dragons session this week?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Okay.
We didn't talk about Harry Potter at all.
So the thing is obviously getting adjusted to a new system, a new receiving core, new coach in a COVID year. So you think the back half of the year is probably a little bit more indicative, but also had injuries in the front of the year and then got Antonio Brown added to the team in week 9. But when you look at the splits of the first half or the second half, the last 8 games, it is the perfect split because that is when Godwin was healthy the whole time. Antonio Brown was on the team the whole time. Mike Evans was out there the whole time. It was basically, if these pieces are on the field, what is it like? And he had the whole stretch and obviously went to a Super Bowl. During that stretch, he was on pace for 5,193 yards and 42.5 touchdowns. He was outstanding. And when you have Chris Godwin, when you have Mike Evans, when you have Antonio Brown, when you have Gronk as your 4th weapon, and when you're getting even an O.J. Howard back, that granted it's Achilles, maybe that won't do anything, but it's more about the receiving core here. This is an offense that we know is going to move, that is going to score a ton of touchdowns with the greatest quarterback of all time. He's going late in the draft. It's just easy.
I'm just going to throw another wrinkle into the equation that he did not have last year on this offense that he will this year. I never imagined he could possibly help another franchise.
Oh, no, you are not.
Don't do it.
You are not doing it.
He's not going to help your fantasy team, but he's going to help Tom Brady get a lot of free.
You know he doesn't have a mustache anymore, right?
Free yards, and it's Gio Bernard. He got his James White and Gio Bernard, a perfect fit for Brady. He came out and said how excited he is to work with Gio this year. He is going to open their playbook up to the James White experience as well and give the immobile Tom Brady an escape hatch that isn't the bumbling stone hands of either Fournette or Ronald Jones.
Come on, Keyshawn Vaughn, get your act together.
Throwing the ball to Ronald Jones. When Giovanni Bernard shows up, you're like, what? This is an angel descended from heaven for me.
So I think we all just look there. There's a non-rosy picture for Brady.
Yeah,
injuries to some of those players, his decline. You know, there could be the defense is a pretty good defense, and it could limit how much he has to do. I mean,
right. He's 44 years old. If he comes down with any kind of injury, I mean, Peyton Manning was absolutely awesome late in his career, unbelievably good until one injury couldn't be recovered from, and it was poof, it was done. Right now, he's healthy, and so I will say this: if he's
more healthy,
if he right, because he
had
played
a
on
torn
the
MCL last year.
Yeah, if he sprains his foot or his shoulder or something in week 3, I'd be fine to.
He's just gonna. If that happened,
he'll eat a lot more plants.
He'll eat a bunch of grass and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm not as bullish on Tom Brady as you guys. I'm fine with him in the 8th round. I've seen him go later sometimes as well. But if we're talking just at ADP, you got Tom Brady in the 8th, or you got this next guy in the 7th.
Aaron Rodgers.
And that's where I would go.
Aaron Rodgers. So you'd go a round earlier with Aaron Rodgers, 7th
would.
round. It depreciated ADP due to why? I mean, MVP last year.
Because we thought he was going to retire.
I don't think this is – like what you're saying right now is accurate, where if it's 1 round difference, why not go with Rodgers?
Yeah.
But I don't think come August 27th, it'll be a round. It'll be 2 rounds at that point.
Probably. Once the casual players show up, Rodgers will likely skyrocket.
Yeah, I mean, 48 touchdowns kind of skyrocket. And was the quarterback 3 last year? Incredible season. Highest percentage of his touchdowns in the red zone. Just dominant. I think it's a pretty good value if you can get him here. It's just you can't count on 38 touchdowns or 48 touchdowns again.
Yeah, I agree.
48-5 touchdown to interception ratio.
So
that feels like a cheat.
And to highlight those the red zone numbers and how insane it was. Let's go 2019. He throws the ball 17 times inside the 5 for 7 touchdowns, which that is actually
really good.
That's a high number. Last year, 30 attempts inside the 5 for 20 touchdowns. I think that number's going to come down.
Well, he has his good friend, personal request. He did some fantasy trading this offseason.
He did.
And he acquired his good buddy Randall Cobb to return to the offense, which does help. I mean, reliability is what Cobb brings you. It's not explosiveness. It's okay when Devontae Adams isn't the option on this play, which is a rarity. I have somebody else I can throw to. So Cobb is there. Aaron Jones, he loses Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones is there.
He's got Tunyon as a great red zone and a touchdown option, especially as teams start getting more and more worried about Devontae Adams and shifting coverage. They're very good at sneaking Tunyon out for large gains to a wide open side of the field. I have no problem with Aaron Rodgers. You just look back at his career, and obviously first ballot Hall of Famer, but fantasy career. He has finished high so many times. He used to be the consensus #1 pick year after year after year, and there is something to the fact, like the touchdown regression is probable here.
Yes.
But I do actually believe there is something tangible to the fact that he has zero farts to give about what the Packers think, what the Packers call. He is going to do what he wants to do. So when he's on the goal line and he wants to throw a touchdown and they call a run play, he's going to be like, I'll just throw it to Devontae Adams because I know I could do it. He's going to have a great season.
And to your point earlier when we brought up the touchdown percentage, the numbers with Josh Allen, the fact that the league average is, what'd you say, 4.5%?
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers has been below that number one time in his entire career.
Yeah, his career average is 6.1.
Yeah, and he's been up above 6.5% like 6-7 times. He followed up a outlier 45 touchdown season where he was 9% with them just a disastrous 39 touchdown 7% season. So 48 touchdowns probably not going to happen, but 39 explosive weeks, week-winning weeks, you'll be happy. We'll just see where that draft price creeps up.
Yep.
7 is Russell Wilson. 8 is Dak Prescott. Oh, boy, Dak. But let's start with Russ. He was the quarterback 6 fantasy finish last year, but it was a bumpy road over the back half. 4,200 yards, 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. You're going to be living in the efficient wonderland of Russell Wilson. But that is it's a scarier place as a fantasy player to be waiting for efficient touchdown totals compared to pure volume or something of that nature.
Russ has been over efficient his entire career, so it's not an outlier to project him above the NFL average. And he's still mobile. He still runs around over 500 rushing yards. You're not getting a high output of rushing touchdowns, but it's nice to pad those numbers, a little bit of safety with over 500 rushing yards last year and still over 4,000 passing yards. For me, the question for Russell Wilson is, imagine, because we know what the top is. You know what Russell Wilson could do. You saw it for the first half of last year. If that gets put together into a full season, that's the quarterback one. But you know that Russell Wilson, at the very least, is still going to be he'll be a top 10 guy by the end of the year. It's just, what is that road? Is that a paved road, or is that a
cobblestone?
Cobblestone, and you're by the end of it, you got to repair your shocks.
My wagon wheels are shattered. I mean, what do you do with that, Jason? 18th in consistency over the back half, first in the first half, and you don't just average those things. You have to think about it as your experience as a fantasy player. You spend an early 6th-round pick. Aren't you locking him in?
Yeah, you would be locking them in if you draft someone in the first 6 rounds. That's the tough thing to do. And as far as, well, which one are we going to get, it really is all entirely to me about the system. Like, Russ is good. Russ can get it done. It's what system are we going to see? Because there were really 2 systems last year. It was the first half of the year, let Russ cook, and then he started, having turnovers and losing games, and then they're like, no, we gotta change that. We gotta throw less. And so they really swung the pendulum too far the other way, and then they replaced the coordinator in the offseason with a lot of offseason hype about wanting to run more, pass less. However, Shane Waldron, the new offensive coordinator, everything he's talking about, everything you're hearing from the players, I've heard Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf all mention this independently. and Shane Waldron saying it over and over, is tempo. Tempo, tempo, tempo. They want to be a faster-paced offense. They want to keep the defense on their heels. And I do believe that if you just get more offensive snaps in for Russell Wilson, he's going to be more consistent and a great fantasy option. So if you want to take the shot of the talent and the weapons that they're going to be a faster pace of play, I'm fine with that with Russell Wilson. But you are going to lock him in, and he has, over the last several years, just had, like, it's always, every single year, it's like, well, one half's good, one half's bad. I don't know what it is, but those things scare me away, and I will probably not take Russell Wilson in a redraft league. In a best ball league, I'm in love.
I'm hopeful for the offense, for what you're talking about with Waldron, because the volume when Russ was destroying in that first half through week 9, he was averaging 37 passing attempts per game. And then after that, the second half, it was 32. So it wasn't like his attempts got cut in half or anything. I mean, yes, on average, 5 attempts per game. That's a substantial number. But it wasn't just the volume
he just
completely went away. He was worse. The offense was worse.
More turnovers.
Defenses knew how to stop what they were doing.
Dak is at 8 right now. Here's a quick question on Dak. We know the potential, right? We know how good he is when he's on the field. Is he off your board if you're drafting in the next week?
This sucks.
How far does he fall this week?
Yeah, I mean he was a fifth round quarterback, the QB5.
If he falls to the 7th, I would scoop him up still.
Okay.
You take the chance.
How about you, Mike?
Dude, I was dreading talking about Dak Prescott because he before the injury to what it was officially a lat injury. Is that where we are? The injury to his, so he can't throw. Dak Prescott was very exciting for fantasy football. He's always been a fantastic guy for that. He was off to an insanely hot start before the broken ankle, and now it's when is Dak going to play? I have no idea.
Am I wrong? You guys saw Hard Knocks this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
McCarthy was reacting to the amount of involvement that Dak had in the first practice. You realize that? It wasn't like they went into the first practice and said, let's make sure we keep him under this. It was he had the first practice, and then they go, oh, my gosh, he had this much work. Now let's limit him.
Yeah, by whatever
seemed
their
like
statistic was.
Yeah, it seemed like they –
Whoops.
It was a reaction. And he was so upset that he wasn't getting more playing time. And here you are with clearly an injury that's probably the result of like a long hiatus and being out there on the field. It's disappointing. There's too many question marks for me right now. I guess Jason's right. I mean, there's always a point in which you maybe make the investment. But
because if I see you, Andy, you have Dak down at 10. Was that a result of the –
No.
He's been there that whole time for you?
Yeah, I just like other quarterbacks better.
Okay.
I have not adjusted him since the injury.
Interesting. Wow.
So you guys have him at 6 and 8, all of us behind ADP, because you do have to spend a 5th-round pick on him right now. And whether or not this injury to his shoulder existed, there was still coming back from a severe ankle injury. How mobile will he be? How much of the rushing – like he's always been good for a handful of rushing touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
There were some question marks there, and there were other players that I just liked more.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the shoulder injury for me, this is the quarterback 2 years ago, and he was basically the quarterback 1 last year before the injury.
You know how much was different 2 years ago, Jason?
Sure.
We were on tour.
He didn't have CeeDee Lamb 2 years ago. The wide receiver core, the offense, the defense, and the ability
is a good point.
I mean, I really, really like Dak. My big worry is just the shoulder. If he drops to where I think it's a good enough value, I'll take the shot that he's healthy.
Is it even fair to call them a defense? Like, is that like
the Cowboys?
Right. Like,
I think by rule they have to.
Okay.
Okay, Jason, let's ask
Sorry,
this.
Cowboys fans.
Dak drops to the 8th round, but the news is coming out, well, we don't think Dak is going to play week 1.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not sure if he's going to play week 2. Is Dak that level of quarterback where you're willing to take him and then just stream for those first couple weeks?
No, because there's other options. The next 2 guys we're talking about are just as good, and they're not injured.
But they won't be there in the 8th round.
One of them will.
Okay, fair.
Justin Herbert is getting a lot of respect in the fantasy football world right now. Quarterback 6 off the board. You two have the biggest disparity. He's our 9th by consensus. I have him at 8. But, Jason, you're at 6. Mike, you're at 12. we already know Mike Williams won't be available to him for most of the year, just based on history. No. But why don't you guys discuss briefly why you have him where you do? Because obviously I think we're all amazed at the talent, the pure talent of Justin Herbert and what he did in his rookie season. But why the disparity between you two?
I mean, it's really a matter of projection, right? As a rookie, we've seen a small sample, and you've just got to decide what is the offense going to be like, what is the team going to be like. It's a new head coach, new coordinator. When I look at it, the more that I've thought, in fact, this is a recent change. I've moved him up recently because he was more in line with your ranking, Andy, and just watching and remembering how good he was, realizing that this is an improved offensive line, a second year with these players. I just think he takes a step forward, and this is a bet on talent. What we saw last year was unbelievably great. It was the best rookie season as a pure passer that I can ever remember seeing, unless you are kind of counting the sophomore Pat Mahomes first year playing, but that wasn't fair. It was his second year. So, I'm hoping that he takes that huge jump forward. I think he's got enough weapons on the offense, assuming Mike Williams is actually playing football with Keenan and Austin Eckler and the offensive line. I just really like everything I'm seeing out of camp, and I'm betting on the talent.
And for me, it's since the year 2000, we've seen 15 rookie quarterbacks average over 13 fantasy points in 10 starts. Cam Newton, Griffin, Russ, Jameis, Mariota, Dak, Baker, like high-level quarterbacks, and 10 of the 15 regressed in points per game. I like Herbert. I really do like the future for him, but for fantasy purposes, I mean, it's not that I dislike him. It's I like other guys more.
He shouldn't have to shoulder quite as much of the load if Austin Eckler can stay healthy and be on the field, and he can hand the ball off to somebody that's not Kalen Ballage.
Well, he needs to hand it off just in a forward motion.
Right.
Now, just a slight
forward motion. Let's call that a pass.
Now, to be fair to everything we're talking about here, Justin Herbert's going in the 5th round. Yeah. And even though I am clearly the highest here and I am betting on talent with the ranking, I'm not drafting Justin Herbert. He isn't – like in the 5th round, I'm hoping Kyler gets there. He's my number 1 quarterback, a true difference maker. I think Herbert is going to have a good season and going to be a really solid fantasy asset.
Too pricey.
But too pricey because this next guy – I've been leaving every draft with one of 3 quarterbacks. It's either Kyler, Tom Brady, or Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
Number 10 on our list, 9 for me, 11 for Mike, 11 for Jason, 12th by ADP. And you have ended up with Ryan Tannehill in a ton of drafts. Why do you like that combination of, what he offers fantasy players plus the draft price?
Well, he's already done it. I mean, it's kind of wacky and wild to say that because you look at his fantasy finish, and last year was his best. He was the quarterback 7, but he was way, way, way better than that once A.J. Brown missed the beginning of the season, and he wasn't good without A.J. Brown. And when he got back, he was like the quarterback 2 the rest of the way. And the previous year, once he took over, he was the quarterback 3. So he's already been a top 3 quarterback in pretty much 2 different years, and now you're adding Julio Jones to the mix. I just think where he's going in a draft, there's very few people who have that true breakout upside. The fact that you can really have a guy that throws so many touchdowns and is efficient and can have a season-long breakout that late in the draft. That's pretty much why I like it.
We have him ranked in a very similar spot, each of us. Ryan Tannehill is ADP QB 12. Well, I said that a little bit fast, but he's the quarterback 12 off the board on average. There will be leagues he goes further than that.
Sure.
By a lot. If you're in a league where the people around you are investing in the upper echelon quarterbacks early, I could see Tannehill going undrafted in some leagues. I could see Tannehill going in the last round in some leagues.
Agreed.
So that's where you can really be, you don't have to go into a draft saying I'm 100% shooting for Tannehill in the 9th round. You could be like, I'm going to keep Tannehill on my radar and all of a sudden get a free potential top 7 quarterback for, in the last round.
He pads with incredible efficiency. The addition of Julio Jones should not be understated for that to continue for Ryan Tannehill. And then he gives you The play action inside the 5 with Derrick Henry.
You got to sell out to stop Henry.
That's a free touchdown for Ryan Tannehill. 5 carries inside the 5 last year, resulting in 4 touchdowns.
7 rushing touchdowns, and those 4 touchdowns he got last year, those are
if you send all 12 defenders to stop Derrick Henry on the goal line,
12.
What did I say?
You said all 12.
So we're
one
having,
extra.
We're having a guy running off the side.
Yes, if you add an extra man on the field, it's still 50% chance you stop Derrick Henry. So that's, like you said, it's a free play for Tannehill.
Yeah, like I could probably get one of those touchdowns in. If Derrick Henry
with the play action?
With the play action, yeah. I beat you.
All right, wrap-up questions for today. We're going to go through late-round quarterbacks, streaming quarterbacks. That's going to be a big-time show on Monday. I mean, those are the guys that will be answering that question. Who's that late-round player that could take the Kyler leap, the Allen leap, the Lamar leap in years past, Mahomes even. So that's Monday. Which of these top 10 quarterbacks that we just talked about will end up on most of your teams?
Brady.
Yeah.
Tannehill.
And then who are you most scared of busting? For me, it is Herbert.
Yeah, it's Herbert for me too, even though I'm betting on talent.
Ooh, make it a baker's dozen.
All right. Wait, a baker's dozen is 3 now?
Yeah, what did you mean there?
I just was saying.
That's 13.
I agreed. I agreed, and I just wanted to do it emphatically.
He's trying to push it through as though it made sense.
I knew it didn't make sense.
I liked it.
Okay. A baker's dozen
just
is that's how many
friends.
Defensive players there are on the field.
That's right, 13. They sent all 13 after Derrick Henry.
That's right. Next week, along with that Monday show, we have the Tips and Tricks show next week.
Oh, baby.
We have our My Guys next week. What, Brooks?
And there's a mock draft show next week.
Oh, man.
We've got to enter the time machine for that My Guys episode. I want to make sure I get this right.
I'm doing listen, I'm doing some good work on these top 10 on these top 10 tips and tricks. No,
what do you mean?
Look, I've got
I have impressed myself.
Even myself.
I'm telling you, just wait for the top 10 tips and tricks episode. I got
you want to handle all 10?
No. But we've got our
But 3 of them will be some of the best work.
Our writer, Matt DeSorbro, a PhD in data science from Harvard, working on some stuff. So don't miss that episode.
You might need a translator.
That's right.
Okay. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed the show. Check out the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com if you want to get a leg up on your league mates. And check us out on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Lots of live streams and things going on this week.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.